He's not whitewashing slavery. So
he's not?
He's not. No,
okay.
He's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does. But let's talk about the fact that when you
let's
talk about the fact
that slavery in America was.
Do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves?
But it was a system of white supremacy.
You realize that slavery is thousands of years old?
White people were
Do you know
the slave
who
owners.
was the first race to try to end slavery?
Wait a second.
All right, so I recently saw a video of a woman by the name of Jillian Michaels. Now, she was having a discussion about slavery and whether or not slavery has impacted modern society and things like that, right? She made an argument that a lot of people, or white people, use to undermine and deflect the severity of slavery and how it has impacted modern society. She said that only 2% of white people own slaves. Now, mind you, this woman, she's a Jewish woman, you know, so you already know where I'm going with this. Imagine if someone tried undermining the Holocaust. Imagine if someone said only 2% of Germans were Nazis at Auschwitz concentration camp or something like that. Imagine somebody said only 2% of Germans were prison guards at those concentration camps. Like, she'd lose her shit, you know? When she said that, it's obvious what she's trying to imply. You can ask yourself, lady, what's your point? What are you trying to get here? And she basically said it in a recent tweet. She said basically 98% of white people were the good guys. Her words. She literally referred to them as the good guys. So I got a question. How the hell does 2% of whatever group you're from pull off 400 plus years of terrorism? How the hell does that work if 98% are the good guys? How the hell does that even work? You know what I'm saying? That being said, you do realize that a person doesn't need to own slaves in order to terrorize people. A person doesn't need to own slaves to hang people off trees. A person doesn't need to own slaves to sexually assault them, to tie them to train tracks and run over them, to mutilate them. A person doesn't need to own slaves to do this. In case you didn't know this, a lot of white people were doing this and they did not own slaves. But then she resorted to another argument. She said, you know, well, white people, we ended slavery. We ended slavery. And then she went on to even say, you know, slavery was going on all over the world. You cannot just blame it on one race, on one group of people. Lady, first of all, we're talking about American slavery. Yeah, we're not talking about the whole goddamn planet and the world and stuff. As far as I'm concerned, what the hell does the Irish famine and the British enslaving the Irish have to do with American slavery? Who, by the way, the British, white people, Irish, you know, white people enslaving white people, dude, that has nothing. We're talking about American slavery. And there was only one race of people that were committing the slavery. They were slave owners, you know, one race. So again, you know, she was slipping that one too, dipping and ducking. You know, they do this, man. I'm telling you. And again, not all white people. It's too tight. You know, this racism shit is definitely, you know, it's a spectrum. You know, white people, historically speaking, they've been really good at playing the whole good cop, bad cop, you know, game. It's like a cat and mouse game of trying to figure out where on the spectrum of racism a white person falls. And the thing is, you don't have to be a full-blown Nazi hanging people off trees and things like that in order to be complicit in slavery. You know, you could just casually sit by and watch these things happen. And that's what, you know, that was the thing that happened pretty much. So this idea that 98% of white people were the good apples was shit. How you couldn't be that good? If you were that good, slavery wouldn't have even taken off the ground. It wouldn't have even taken off. Jim Crow wouldn't have taken off the ground. All of those lynchings, all of that. That shit wouldn't have even happened if 98% of white people were good apples. Then deflecting, talking about other people on slaves and this. Like, how about this? How about focus on slavery in your country and who was committing that? Then we can start, you know, worried about other countries and who's committing slavery in other countries and all this thing. And then, you know, another argument that they try to use, I can't remember if she tried to use this one, but a lot of times they'll say, well, the Africans, they sold other Africans to the white people and things like that. Well, okay, if that happened, well, fuck the Africans too. Either way, the slaves that you bought, the Africans that you bought, you didn't have to treat them like shit. You could have been cool with them. You didn't have to go around beating them and hanging them. As far as the Africans are concerned, hey, maybe one day they'll get theirs. A lot of people say, hey, they've been getting theirs for forever, for the longest, because Africa's a shithole and this like that. I don't know. You know, all I know is that the Africans that were dragged to America were treated like shit. If they were treated like shit by the Africans when they were back in Africa, fuck Africa. And to the ones who got treated like shit in America, hey, no, to the white people, shame on you. And that's the whole point of that discussion. That was the point those other people were trying to make to that Jillian Michaels. But again, you know, it's the same old tactics: deflect, make excuses, you know, bobbing, weaving like they playing dodgeball. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not some modern day pro-black activist. You know, all the BLM and all that shit. Nah, man, so I'm not on that stuff either. At the end of the day, I always say I am a foreign resident of this planet spiritually. However, I am fully aware of the body that I was born in. Therefore, I need to know how to navigate. And I know there are some people that just don't like me because I'm black. And I'm not saying all white people don't like me because I'm black. No, but I'm aware that racism is still a thing out here. I'm aware of it, you know, and I'm not a black person that's going around pandering, acting like, oh man, it doesn't exist. It does.